I'm gonna dry roast spices that are gonna go into the curry paste. So if you've got pre-ground spices, cool, that's fine. If you are working with whole spices, I like to dry roast them. So I've got a stainless steel pan here. I'm gonna turn it on my stove onto high. I have coriander seeds, cumin seeds, and white peppercorns. While my pan is heating, it's gonna take a minute or two, I'm gonna look at my dried Thai chilies. So these are them. If you don't have dried Thai chilies, you can use Mexican chilies, you can use Chinese chilies. You want a small chili. And on the recipe, I think I've said 4 to 8 dried chilies, I think. I'm using 6. I like spice. If you are not super spicy, go for the minimum or even go less, depending on how much spice you like. With these dried chilies, I'm gonna take the seeds out. So what I'm doing is just cracking them open, and the actual flesh I'm putting back into a little bowl. I'm gonna run over to my kettle. I have put it on before the class, but I'm gonna turn it back on because we're gonna soak these chilies in hot water. We're literally just kind of breaking them open with our fingers, getting the majority of the seeds out. Doesn't have to be all of them. Seeds and the membranes in your chilies are the hottest part. We'll talk about that again in a minute when we get to our fresh chilies. With these dried chilies, the seeds don't pound all that nicely into your curry paste, so I usually take them out, but it is actually optional. I'm making sure my pan for dry roasting isn't getting too hot. It wants to be hot, but not so hot that it's gonna burn your spices. So you want to be able to, when you put your hand close to it, you're going to have to need to pull your hand away quite quickly, and then you know it's hot enough. So there's my dried chilies, de-seeded. There we go. So they're just hydrating. They take about 10 to 20 minutes to soften, and then we'll drain them and we'll chop them ready to pound into our curry paste. My fry pan for my spices is nice and hot. You're gonna use for your dry spices either a spice grinder if you've got one, or I use a little mortar and pestle for grinding them. So I'm gonna start with my coriander seeds, and once they get in the pan, I'm gonna move it fast so that they are moving and they don't burn because they're not moving in the pan. As soon as you smell them and they pop, get them out of the pan. It's really, really quick. Next, I'm gonna do my white peppercorns. And then cumin seeds are really quick. As soon as you see a wisp of white smoke and smell them, that's it. Out they come. So it's as quick as that. I'm gonna let them cool before I grind them. So I'm just setting them aside. Right now, we've activated the essential oils in those spices by heating them. We want them to settle back down. We want them to cool before we grind them, ideally. And the first thing that we're going to pound is going to be our garlic. So I haven't chopped my garlic or anything. I got it whole. That's approximately 2 tablespoons of garlic, I'm guessing. What have I got? I've got 1, 2, 3, 4. I've got about 10 cloves of garlic, peeled garlic. In they go into my mortar and pestle. I'm going to add to them a pinch of salt. What the salt does is it gives you a little bit of abrasion, and it also pulls the juices out of your garlic. So it's going to help you make a paste. So I added about half a teaspoon of salt there. And what I'm going to do with my mortar and pestle is I'm just pounding down on it. So what you kind of do is put your body weight in. The garlic is really easy, but once we start getting into some of the other ingredients, you got to be a little bit more vigorous with them. But you're just kind of, I'm bouncing with my knees a little bit and just letting the weight, my body weight, push into that pestle to pound my garlic. And don't be afraid to make a little noise. We want to end up with a really smooth paste. We're going to add one ingredient at a time. I always start with the garlic, and then after the garlic, I'm going to choose the coarsest ingredient, and I'm going to keep adding the coarser ingredients and end up with the wetter ingredients, because the coarser ingredients want to be in that mortar and pestle for longer. So once I'm getting towards a paste, I often will start to kind of roll my pestle around in my mortar like this. I'm going to grab a spoon, because every now and then I just want to scrape the sides down a bit. And then I'm going to keep going until it's nice and smooth. So now I have a garlic paste in my mortar and pestle. And I'm going to move it aside for a minute and prep my next ingredient. And I'm actually going to do my lime leaves. I've washed these already. I've called for a teaspoon. I'm really just guessing. If it's not exactly a teaspoon, if it's more, if it's less, it really doesn't matter. I'd rather more than less. So I'm pulling those little ribs off the back of all of them. Knife skills again. I've got the tip of my knife down and I am moving, I'm right-handed, I'm moving my right hand so that the base of my knife is moving through these leaves, but the tip of my knife is staying fairly stationary. And every time I've run through them once, I'm gathering them back together and doing it again. So I've chopped them fairly fine. I'm now going to put them in the mortar and pestle. We're going to pound them into our garlic. So just to show you, at this point, I'm going to pound it a bit more, but this is what I got. So if I scoop it up with my spoon again, it's a lot smoother than it was a moment ago, okay? So that so far is garlic and lime leaves. With your galangal, I use a knife, not a peeler. I've called for a 1-inch piece. The piece I have is actually too big. I'm going to use half of it. So this is galangal. This is my 1 inch. That's subjective, right? It's just, it's a knob of galangal. So I use my knife to peel it. So these are my peelings here. And then I'm going to slice and chop it. So I'm just slicing through it into thin slices with my knife. And then I'm going to take those slices and I'm going to try and slice them into a julienne. And then I'm going to rough chop them just like we did our lime leaves. Just hold it up again to show you that's galangal. In it goes. And we're going to pound this into the lime leaves and garlic. So at this point we have garlic, we have lime leaves, we have galangal. So that's what it's looking like. It smells delicious. My kitchen smells like Thailand. So let's get ready for our next ingredient. Move that aside again. And those dried chilies that I hydrated earlier, they've been sitting in water for a while. I'm just going to go and drain them so that they don't leach out too much of their flavor into the water. I usually just use my hand and get rid of the hot water, so we're just left with the chilies. We'll come back to those in a little bit. But now I'm going to look at the lemongrass. So I called for 2 stalks of lemongrass. There it is. I've got full stalks. What you want to do is get down to the heart of your stalks of lemongrass. So we're going to cut about 1.5 inches or 2 inches off the ends. Go through here. So I've removed this part. I'm going to throw that away. And then I'm going to cut so that I'm left with about 6 inches of stalk. I'm removing this. You can keep this and use it in teas and stocks, but you don't need it in your curry paste. And then we're going to take what we're left with and we're going to peel off the outer leaves, and we're going to keep peeling until we're left with the tender part that's at the heart. And again, these leaves that we're peeling off, these layers that we're peeling off, You can even freeze them and make lemongrass tea with them, or lemongrass stock. So you can make a Thai chicken stock with lemongrass in it with these. We're peeling it away until we're left with a piece like this, okay? So this is what was at the heart, and it's a little flexible. It's less woody, it's less fibrous, okay? I'm gonna do that with the other one. I'm going to keep these pieces and use them in stock. I threw away the coarser pieces, but this stuff that I just peeled off the hearts, I'm not going to throw away. That'll make a lovely tea or a stock. But what I'm left with is my 2 hearts. Here they are, okay? So now that I've got those, just like with all the other ingredients, I'm going to slice them. Then I'm going to chop them, and then they're going to go into the mortar and pestle. So I think I'm going to have about a tablespoon of lemongrass also. So I've got pretty much similar amounts of galangal and lemongrass. There's my lemongrass, and I'm moving that into the mortar and pestle. And we're going to bring it back, and we're going to pound this. Again, we have a nice paste happening. So next, I'm going to do my 2 chilies, my fresh and my dried, together. Again, I think I've told you to use 3 to 6 fresh Thai chilies. I've got these little guys, and if you are trying to tone down the heat, you can take the seeds and membranes out. Also wear gloves. If you are likely to rub your eyes or your nose, yeah, wear gloves. I'm not worried about it, so I'm not going to wear gloves, but just beware. Wear gloves if you need to. If you want to take the seeds out, what you're going to do is cut the stem off, cut your chili in half, like so, and then take a spoon or the back of your knife and just scoop those seeds out. They are the hottest part. The membrane's actually the hottest part. The seeds are the second hottest part. So if you take them out like that, you're left with just the little seedless chili. You've got the flavor and some heat, but without the searing intensity and slight bitterness of the seeds and membranes. So I've done that with 1 chili. The rest of them, I'm going to leave all the seeds and membranes in because I like heat. So that's just optional. So I'm going to, with the rest of them, just slice them. And then, like with all the other ingredients, we're chopping them fine. And once again, I'm going to have about a tablespoon because I'm using 6. They're pretty small ones. General rule of thumb, the smaller the chili, the hotter it is. I'm then going to add to these the dried chilies, and I'm going to chop them together. So this is our heat in our curry paste. This is the only place the heat is coming from. So if you want spicy, add more. If you don't, add less. Fresh and dried. There they are. So at this point, I have a fairly wet paste. It looks like this. It's not red. It's not going to look very red until I get that paprika into there. So next, I'm going to go with cilantro stems. So I've called for 1/3 of a cup. In Thailand, they would actually use the roots of cilantro. You very rarely get a bunch of cilantro here that has roots on it. So these are nice. This bunch of cilantro is really nice because it has long stems. So I'm actually going to go and just quickly wash the stems under the tap. If they're browned at all at the ends, these ones aren't, slice them off. But what I'm going to do is cut off my stems. So there's my cilantro. I'll keep that for another use, for a garnish or something. but I'm not going to use it today. And I'm left with a bunch of stems. And from those, I'm going to try and pick off a few of the leaves because I want the stems, not the leaves. The stems have more flavor. They're better in your paste. The leaves go a little blackened and slimy. So a few leaves is okay, but mostly what I'm looking for is stem. So I'm using the stems of one bunch of cilantro. I have 2 bunches of cilantro. It just really depends on how much stem is on your cilantro. And I'm chopping them again. There they are. In they go. So get a nice paste happening with your cilantro. Cilantro is nice and moist. It's very easy to pound. So if I show you a spoonful of this now, this is our paste. So just to show you Thai shrimp paste, this is the one I have right now. You want to make sure you have a Thai shrimp paste. They're a dry paste. They look like this. It's very umami. It's made from salted fermented shrimp. My recipe calls for 2 teaspoonfuls. So this is your umami in the paste. So I'm going 1, 2 teaspoonfuls. I'm doing 2 generous teaspoonfuls because I like my umami. I'm going to pound that shrimp paste into the rest of my paste. Now it really smells like Thailand. Then I'm going to take my sweet paprika that I mentioned earlier, and I'm going to mix that in, and my paste will start to look nice and red. Here it is. That's my sweet paprika. I'm using 2 tablespoonfuls. I'm using lots. This is what it looks like, okay? Smells so good. So there's my powdered spices. In they go. So once the dry spices are in, you're done. I made it hot. It's good. If you do dare to taste it, once you get to the point of, once you've cooked it out, which we're going to do in a bit, it mellows. It changes. I got about 7 tablespoonfuls. My recipe calls for 2 to 3.